First of all, let me to introduce some background of our building. Our building is called Ping An Financial Center, which is the headquarters of our company, the Ping An Insurance Group Company. Our company is a Shenzhen-based company, and we were founded in 1988. This is a photo taking almost the same location of our existing site, and which is what Shenzhen looks like in 1980s. And this is the photo showing the opening ceremony of our company in 1988, which was 27th of May. That means last Sunday was our company's 30th anniversary. So by now, our company, this is the information of 2017. We value $100 billion US. We are ranked 39th of top 500 according to the Fortune. And actually, we are the largest insurance company in the world. And we have 1.7 million staff. Okay, then back to 10 years ago, in 2008, we just finished our IPO as a public listed company in Hong Kong and China. But at that time, we only have a 4-story headquarters, which was renovated from an industrial building. Of course, we ran a lot of small offices scattered around in Shenzhen. So that's why we desperately need a headquarters, first to solve the problem of physical space that we need, and second is that we need a building, a headquarters to really strengthen the image of our company. So in 2008, we had an invited design competition. We have 3 requirements. The first is this building should be iconic. Second, should be good to use. And third, as an insurance company, we would like this building to have a sense of stability and security. So that's the result of the competition. I think we would be quite strange. This is totally different as what we saw today, right? I think we are just like all the other clients. We like to change the architect's design. So may I have Rob to tell the story of what's going on? Okay.
Thank you, Felix. Gene had intended to be here until yesterday. Something came up and asked me to fill in for him. He regrets not being here, would love to see all of you. And this is a project that he actually had quite a bit of involvement in, feels very passionately about it, and is really disappointed not to be here. The stability, permanence, and unity were the 3 concepts that the chairman of Ping An imparted to us at the end of the competition. And he felt that the Empire State Building in New York was the perfect embodiment of those principles, that we should look to that building and really sort of understand that and bring its thinking into the design of their headquarters building. I think also as the center of Midtown Manhattan, an icon that represents the city on the world, he had the same hopes and aspirations that the building that we designed for him would take on the same characteristics in Shenzhen. And I don't know that he was aware of it, but he was maybe prescient in other ways. Gene is fascinated by the statistics of growth in New York. When the Empire State Building was initiated in 1930, it came on the heels of 30 years of dramatic growth, over 1 billion square feet of space built in Manhattan alone, not New York City, but Manhattan. And the circumstances in Shenzhen are not that dissimilar from the mid-70s, when we think of Shenzhen being transformed from a village to the current urban metropolis, 2.5 times as much area has been built in that 30 years, but that 30 years sort of signals the starting point for Ping An Insurance. The building which is there today, which with any luck some of you had the chance to visit a couple years ago during the conference in Shenzhen, really is sort of represents or marks Midtown of Shenzhen. You know it's expanding rapidly in all directions, but this is the center of the Futian district, sort of anchoring its grid, its public open spaces, and its identity as the sort of landing point as you come to Shenzhen from Hong Kong. In the future, as the whole Pearl River Delta becomes more interconnected with high-speed rail, Ping An Assurance headquarters is sort of one of the jewels that will link that passageway together. The concept design phase actually lasted a year. The metaphor that we thought the chairman was referring to in the Empire State Building actually turned out to be more prescriptive than we had ever imagined. And our designs went from those which were trying to negotiate the very tiny site. This is a 660 meter building with almost 4.5 million square feet of space going into it, and those 13 schemes, starting with forms that were more dynamic, a little more flared at the base to deal with some of the structural requirements, culminated in what is a much more quadrilaterally symmetrical scheme and a much more simply extruded one than the scheme that we won the competition with. So the building, I think, is quite striking. It really diverges from the other super high-rise buildings that you've seen KPF having designed, whether it was the Shanghai World Financial Center that Bill presented yesterday or the project that Jamie just presented, which are sort of buildings that are much more sculptural, where they are all highly efficient in structural terms. But Ping An is really the first building that takes the structural response as informative in the development of its design. The building has, again, 4.5 million square feet of space. There are 16,000 employees who are there every day, observation deck on top. The site when we started was the super tower with a little bit of podium you see on the left of that image. A few years into the design process, Ping An realized that as they were starting to bring all of their employees into one space, that in this amazing, very tall tower, they still didn't have enough space. So we're able to negotiate with the city for the tower that you see on the right, which has more office space, a hotel on top. But the podium that bridges them together then becomes part of the public space that informs the site or informs this part of the city, which is very dense. Sectionally, the cooling towers for the building have been pulled into the tower itself so that podium rooftop is activated by restaurants and public spaces. So here you see the building on the skyline. Those exposed columns to generate a frontality to the building. It's almost like the grid of the city is pulled up into the skyline, and again representing stability, permanence, and unity as the chairman's directive. So it's hard really not to understand this building without really understanding its structure and the attempts of its optimization. One of the points of deviation is we try to think about how you take the idea of creating a new Empire State Building but doing it in a modern idiom, was also informed by the idea that maybe the sort of structural expression could be something that sort of brings us into the new century and into sort of a more forward-looking position. So the tower, as finally generated, is really quite efficient structurally. We worked with Dennis and Thornton Tomasetti on the scheme, but all of those moves are evident on the elevations, the sculpting of the corners to minimize vortex shedding and to help the building's performance, so that this scheme in its final version reduces wind forces by somewhere between 30 and 40%. So it's a mega column scheme. The difference from our others is that the columns are pulled to the outside. That broadens the stance. It roughens the surface. The corners are treated differentially over the height of the building, again to aid in the building's overall performance. Here you see at the corners the transformation of the expression of those, a diagonal expression which helps minimize some of the shear forces between the belt trusses that exist at the refuge floors. And then on a typical floor plate, taking those columns and pulling them out, you know that they're roughly 15 square meters apiece, allows the office space inside to be more uniform. So at the base of the building, we have roughly 14-meter leaf spans from a very dense core, and with the opening of the corners on the typical floors, those trusses connected again at the belt course levels. The expression of those corners changes over the height of the building. So the base has got those re-entrants. As we move to the top, we change to a concave surface, and that sort of is partly informed by the transformation of the core dropping out of the corners. And so we get something that, again, even with the tapering, the building still has impressive leaf spans and opens up the tower to the view. The surfaces of the tower that you see, the chevrons that are expressed on the curtain wall, are also contributing to the roughening of the building surface to increase its efficiency. So, I mean, as we think about sustainability, one of the key tenets, in addition to minimizing energy usage, is to minimize material. So we've gone great lengths towards that. And then the base of the building, the columns pull apart and express entry into the lobby, and it's to help expand the sense of the site as the building meets the ground. The tower top is, as you know, is given over to observation deck, giving something back to the city. It utilizes a series of glass prisms that cantilever over the building exterior, and sort of in an interactive way for the public to experience the building. The glass floor, you notice the foot isn't on it, it's just set back. And then the 117th, 118th floors are occupied by a restaurant in that pinnacle. The very top of the tower, the moment is resolved in a pyramidal form, a jewel that resolves the 8 expressions on the building exterior. But it really might be thought of as a seed pod. The tower in its current form is 598 meters. The additional 60 meters that the spire was going to represent were removed because of influence of the aviation authority, but we're optimistic that something is going to change in the future and the spire will return. The curtain wall of the building, the expression of the structure on the outside, I think the chairman initially thought that those should be clad in stone to reinforce the idea of permanence. But the exterior at the moment in its final version is clad in a linen finished stainless. So the building really glistens in the sunlight. The 8 corner columns reinforced by the chamfering of the wall that infills between them. The building, as it sort of folds into itself on the top, reflects light and provides the sense of unifying the 4 facades as they rise to the top. The fins on the building incorporating window washing, lighting through perforation at the nose are all part of this complete sort of stainless expression on the outside. So much more sort of visionary, we thought, expression of the building for the future than something that's purely masonry as the Empire State. Again, the transparency at the base, the columns coming down, which are sitting on jet mist, almost as if the earth has come through the pavement to receive the columns as they come down. The final tower is, again, I mean, it's, I think, important to understand that this is not a speculative office building. It's a corporate headquarters, and every step along the design development process was trying to make sure we were meeting Ping An's goals for efficiency and planning, but most importantly, developing a building that tried to meet those goals of stability, permanence, and unity, at the same time providing a centerpiece for the Futian district and Shenzhen. To talk a little further about the sustainable aspects of the project, Felix will come back to center.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. As a responsible developer and for this building, we also did a lot of sustainable design for the energy use and also the recycled water and also the recycled stainless steel curtain wall system. And after applying all these energy-saving design from the calculations that we would like to achieve 42% in energy saving compared to actual standards. And we also did calculations on the energy consumed and found that for our building, the energy consumed the most would be the air conditioning system, and then the lift, and then the artificial lightings. I may like to mention two interesting points. There's, the first is our building is the first building in China that would like to say would apply the shade and LED lighting synchronization. That means the intensity of the internal lighting and the height of the window shade would be designed by the sensors outside the building and below the ceiling, based on the data collected from the solar intensity and the solar angle. So after 1 year of moving in, we checked that we save 25% of energy savings on artificial lighting. And the second thing is the ice storage cooling systems that we try to make ice for as the coolant of the air conditioning system, trying not to waste the electricity generated during the night. So we make that period during the night to create ice, and then the ice melt during the day as the cooling. So for this, we checked that for our building, we save off around 20% of annual electricity bill for the air conditioning system. So the last, we also make a small video trying to make some research and to asking the people of the Shenzhen and the neighborhood and also the tenants in our building how they respond to our Ping An Financial Center.
这里好高，再看到那个三角形那个玻璃板，就是死活都不敢上去。冬天去的时候，我耳朵聋了。我还能看到我的幼儿园。这里很高，可以看到好多东西，好多东西，还能看到云呢。我长大也想建一栋这么高的高墙。
是平安金融中心吗？
平安金融中心，
平安金融中心，
很美丽，
像变形金刚一样，很摩登。
摩登。Not much window there. It's like all closed area.
幾 OK 嘅，因為好似有啲火箭衝天嘅感覺。
上面的话有点像钻石的感觉，下面的话就是这种钢筋的结构，
非常好，我也看着非常壮观，是深圳标志。
就是我在深圳任何地方都能看到它呀，对呀，它特别显眼，那么高，也雄伟呀，壮观。
I like that building, PAFC.
This building is amazing.
好高科技。起嗰陣其實都好嘈啊。
建设建筑施工过程都比较环保啊，对周边影响都不大的。
抬头看看它颈椎病啊，都弄好了。
有的时候想玩吧，旁边可以去跳跳广场舞啊。
这边的服务比较专业，然後安保比較安全，
出行呢係比較方便，可以話相當方便嘅。
就是時不時也有擁堵，交通情況都 OK 啦。如果唔係上落班時間嘅話
，CBD 中心区绿化带比较少，主要就是车辆啊什么比较多。
高大上，在这样的环境工作，我们感到非常的开心。安保系统非常好，我们进出都有我们特制的工作卡才可以进入。
这个智能化的窗帘，可以根据我们阳光的这个光度的光线的变化，来自动调节我们的这个室内的这个光度。
你在哪里工作？我在平安金融中心，然后再加上我在107层，简直爆了。有云的情况下，我觉得这个体验也非常好，就是你感觉那个云朵就在你脚下飘， 就感觉自己真的是小仙女了。
第一反应就是哦，就那个深圳最高楼啊，还是蛮有自豪感的吧。
PAFC 呢，改变了深圳的高度的同时呢，实际上是拓展了深圳未来的发展的空间。
That's it. Thank you.